Right, hello. This is the reaction portion of the video. If you want to check out the reaction, go and click on this link right here, or the one in the description down below, or the one at the end of this video. Get out of this little show, Bocchi having delusions as always, but positive delusions this time. We do see that Bocchi is very much a daydreamer, which kind of makes sense, right? If you spend a lot of your time being too afraid to make specific decisions, those are problems that are in your head, right? And we do know that as humans, we do often use dreams, and that includes daydreams, of course, to process the things that we have or have not done, right? The decisions that are still out, the problems that are behind us, the things that busy our mind, right? That keep us awake at night, so to speak. And Bocchi is no exception there. I can't count the amount of times that I've actually been daydreaming in my life when I was a teenager, especially. You do have, I don't know why that is. I'd have to actually look into that, but it's very interesting. As a teenager, I was daydreaming constantly. As an adult, I'm not doing that as much. I mean, obviously I do have these moments, right? When you lie in bed and you can't sleep, or when you have a little bit of free time. Maybe it's just that you're more busy as an adult, right? That you do have more on your mind, more to manage, more to actually structure your day after, and that is the reason for it. Either way, she's daydreaming of rocking the stage on school, and it's this absolutely unrealistic giant stage where you're like, this is your school, this is not your school. This is how you would imagine like some kind of like band drama on Hollywood or something, or on Disney. Yeah, of course. But holy shit, you are a national treasure, Bocchi. You actually are. Just in a wholly different way, on the meta level. And bam. I mean, she has bags under her eyes. She must have slept very badly. Maybe it's because this is maybe the first or the second day of school, and she's still recovering from that. Actually being really sore from going to the beach and doing all that stuff, and then doing exercise that she's not used to. I mean, that's gonna happen a lot to you and me and whatnot. Whenever I'm starting up again doing exercise, when I have these phases, when I was sick in between, or I haven't done something in a while because I was busy with other things in life, it's hard as fuck. And back when I was in high school and when I was just starting to do sport, because before that I haven't done I've done almost nothing in terms of sports. It was like, you felt like you were dying, right? Doing going jogging or going to the gym or whatever. Felt terrible. And then the next day was hell. Although the further I went into doing more sports and whatnot, the more it was not the next day, but rather 2 days after or 3 days after, where you're just sitting down on a chair and you want to get up, and it's like, holy fucking shit, my legs hurt so fucking much. Right? It feels like you're almost like your legs are creaking as you stand up. But that's how you know you put in some effort. Yeah. But yes, not paying attention in school is a very relatable experience for me. That's been the cause for many a concern these days, because there's concepts, mathematical and otherwise, that I had to spend a lot of time and energy into actually understanding after school, and kind of learning them. And it's a lot harder to learn them at that point in time, especially if there's foundational mistakes that you have in the way you learn things. That's a thing that you learn in psychology very early on, especially when it comes general psychology, the foundational structures, and you learn about memory and learning behavior and all of that. You do learn that it's a lot harder to replace information that you've already saved in a wrong way, right? And to replace that with the correct version or with a new version of something, than to actually learn something from the ground up. And in addition to that, of course, you do have the effect that children have a very, very high level of neuroplasticity, which means that their mind constantly changes on a biological and hormonal level as well, right? All the hormones, all the things that are coursing through our veins as teenagers, they actually cause us as people, our brain to and our body and everything else to develop very rapidly, and that is something you do not have as an adult. Although I've heard people argue that actually, in their opinion, this whole thing about like IQ and learning things being very difficult after 25 is not one-to-one as prominent as people make it out to be, because they believe that up until now, in terms of like society, you did not have these requirements to have this lifelong learning going on, and the main reason why things seem harder to learn after that time period, right after we reach that age, is that oftentimes we are not used to things changing constantly, because we have settled into a niche in life, basically, at which point we are more or less not experiencing new things on a daily basis, but rather just on a weekly, maybe monthly, maybe even yearly basis. We have routines, we have things going on, and then maybe that was just a proposition, a hypothesis if you want, that maybe even though there's probably an effect in just growing up in the hormones you are getting from your body, right, during your development, even though that might still be an effect, it might not be as strong and as empathized as we would believe it to be at the current point in our scientific understanding, because now that the requirements have gone to lifelong learning, and now that biographies are not as linear as they used to be, and people are shifting more between jobs and between skill sets and all of that, and now that information processing has also become a lot more fast, right? A lot more variable in the world with like our globalization and information technology, the internet, all of these things, that now people are actually going through life in a manner that stimulates the growth of their brain way beyond this 25th year, and there might be more of an effect of actually adaptively learning new things better than previous generations that were more used to having a straight routine, a linear biography, right, at a certain point in time, at a certain cutoff. I still think there's a huge biological component there, but it's not out of the question to believe that if the requirements that we have in life actually are changed, that the behavior of even our biology is going to change. We found that out through all of these revelations that we have had in biology and genetics with gene expression and all of that, that through the course of your life, there can be events happening that are actually promoting or reducing the expression of a certain gene, the production of certain proteins within our body that then have secondary effects on us as people, on a psychological level, on a biological level, on so many levels. So it is not out of the question to believe that maybe these days, current generation, millennials, then Gen Z, and maybe even Gen Alpha, that these generations are all gonna have a much easier time adapting to changing circumstances, since they are more used to this constant development and flow of just having to adapt to new things. At the same time, we still have like pretty much a big crisis when it comes to the educational system, especially in America, but even in Europe. So if that is it's definitely also a societal problem. So maybe the societal problem is working against that genetic advancement or change in behavior that we could have, which is adapting better to changing environments and learning things throughout your entire life, more than actually just learning it in the first like 25 to 30 years and then just going about your day, slowly accumulating knowledge and wisdom and experience. But that's something way out there, right? That's a talk that we can have another time, also with like things that I find fascinating, that childhood and like what we define as childhood and being a teenager and adolescent and whatnot, that this definition has kind of not just a biological level, of course, but also a social level, and that it has been expanding over time because people stayed longer in the primary and secondary educational systems that we have built up for ourselves in order to prepare people for what they're going to do later. Not to mention AI and how that is going to change our entire landscape. But yeah, that is like a little tangent going off. But yeah, typical for a teenager, right? Daydreaming, zoning out during school, being like, whatever, right? I have other troubles that I'm worrying about. Especially typical also for people with ADHD. So I do wonder if our little 𝔸𝕠𝕤𝕠𝕦𝕥 has some ADHD going on there. I mean, that's a shot in the dark, right? We haven't seen like extreme signs for that. We've just seen her being a little bit of a social outsider, which can be a couple of things, right? Anxiety is high in people who have ADHD, for example, also in people who have autism. So there's all kinds of different things going on, but she could also just be somebody who is socially anxious, and that's just it. This doesn't need to be a condition, right? And even if we talk, by the way, even if we talk about conditions like ADHD or even, right, panic disorder, social anxiety, or generalized anxiety disorder, I don't know quite how it's called in English, right? I do know the German names for it. Even if you talk about these things, when we talk about psychology, these things are classified as groups of symptoms, right? Or rather syndromes, which there's no underlying common cause for that, right? There are risk factors, there are things that could make it more likely to be developed, right? They're both on the genetic level as well as the environment level and all of that stuff going on, but it's not like we can put it down like in medicine when it's like just a specific disease, right? It's a virus, it's a bacteria, it's an infection of some kind. No, it's just a general group of symptoms that occur at the same time and that often have the same, right? The same comorbidities and the same problems that people deal with alongside those. But yeah, I'm drifting off like Bocchi. I'm being caught in my own little world. This is something I've actually talked about a lot of times already. The first step is a very hard step, and you can't just put something down as like, yeah, Bocchi joined the band. That was the first step. It's not, right? Depending on perspective, depending on which category you point, like signing up for the culture festival this is a first as well. And this is a first step for her, because the first step is signing up, right? And that is the requirement. That is something, for example, that you have to deal with when you're going for specific prep schools or secondary schools, when you're in various countries. When you're going for university, you have to apply. You can't get taken by a university if you don't apply. I mean, even, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe sometimes you just get them offered, but in many cases, you actually have to apply for a scholarship as well. So there's a lot of like barriers in your way as to actually get the thing that might be good for you, that might bring you forward in life, right? That might make you reach your goals. Bocchi here is struggling in the way that if she applies, this is something that actually ropes her in a way socially, right? That it ropes her in on an emotional level. People are gonna have expectations of her, and we've seen in the past episodes that this is something she has very much problems dealing with, saying no to people after the fact. So she already knows if she turns in that, if she puts in that paper and people are gonna come towards her and be like, hey, you applied for this, are you gonna do it? She's gonna be like, hi. すみませんでした。Right, she's gonna feel really, really, really guilty that she doesn't want to do it. So she's gonna say yes anyway, because she doesn't want to disappoint people and have people look down on her for being somebody who doesn't follow through on what she says, which is a big thing. And I do feel like this is kind of like the rock and the hard place in many cases with anxiety, right? You want to take that first step, but you know that it doesn't matter what it is. Starting, right, recording a video for the first time, going to the gym for the first time, having a casual conversation with your classmates or like your I don't know how you call it, in your fellow students in university, right, or at the workplace, your colleagues. It's very hard to take that first step, because you're gonna know if you make that, if you take that leap, that now you have one foot in the door and people are gonna look at you and be expecting you to step through the door. And that is something that is putting pressure on you to actually do it, while at the same time your anxiety is increasing, your heart rate is going up, right? You're gonna get cold sweat and whatnot because you're super nervous about actually doing it and failing it. So you're stressed in both cases, right? You're stressed now because you know if you're like, I'm sorry, I can't do it after all. Then it's gonna be like, oh, I knew they were like a loser or wouldn't follow through on that, or why did you even apply then? Holy shit, right? Get this girl out of here. And in the other case, it's like, you step up, you actually do it, and you fail, right? You suck, you bomb, like Rio did, and people are gonna be like, why did they even apply? They're fucking shit, right? And now your reputation is ruined either way, right? So this first step is the most important thing, because on the one hand, it is a major barrier because it keeps us from actually doing that. If I don't apply to that university, I can't get a letter that tells me I'm not good enough for them, right? If I don't write that test, I'm not gonna fail. I'm not gonna flunk the test, right? But if you actually put your application in, you're like, okay, I'm gonna do it, right? Or you sign up for the test, whatever. Now you're in, right? Socially you're in, and this is setting expectations on you from specific people, from like general community circles as a whole, and from society overall. Social conventions, things we learned that are proper and polite and that we should be doing, and things we should not be doing, which is blowing people off, especially in Japanese society, where the social aspect is really big, right? Where there's a lot of weight on, and you see that a lot in anime. Not that anime is everything to go by in terms of Japanese society, but you see that in documentaries as well about Japan, where there's this expectation of, if you put yourself out there, right, and you're trying to be part of the community, you have certain responsibilities actually towards your fellow people, to follow through on that. And not following through on that, even if it's just on a minor level, like not going out for that drink with your boss, is not seen very well in Japanese society, which, not gonna lie, actually horrible, because in my opinion that's way too harsh. But you know, different cultures, different conventions, and right, we should change those conventions down the line, but not the topic right here. The topic is what kind of pressure that puts on people individually, and especially on people who have a hard time interacting socially, who have a lot of social anxiety, who have a lot of problems interacting with people in general. It puts them into that, between that rock and the hard place. But also, what we do a lot with patients in psychology and therapy is actually getting people to commit to something, because that is how you get them to actually make progress for themselves. Now, obviously, we should always take into account and look that we are not putting people into a position where they actually are setting goals for themselves and making commitments that they can't fulfill, right? Because like, if somebody's like, I want to be a rock star one day, you don't put them into the arena filled with 200,000 people. You put them maybe in a private little family or friend concert first, right? Or you make them put something online first. I think Bocchi's father had a great idea with that, where it's like, publish your videos online, see how they, right? There's this anonymity, and there's a lot of bad points to internet anonymity in terms of like people just being vile. And it's not because people are bad, in my opinion. It's just because people are complicated emotionally, and sometimes they need an emotional outlet. And you do have that point of separation where if you're anonymous and your opposite is also anonymous, you don't have to see them as a human. So you can just shove all of that nastiness onto people, right, that you maybe have experienced in your life, or right, all the stress that you've built up, and release it without having to feel guilty about hurting another human being. Obviously you do, but right. But that aside, right, put something out with anonymity. See, people are probably gonna be the most honest on the internet, and some people have like hot takes that are absolutely stupid, but at the same time, there's going to be a lot of people who are just going to be honestly like, hey, I think what you're doing is great. And I think that's a big boost, because those people don't have any reason to lie to you. If they didn't like what they are seeing or what they're hearing, what they would probably be doing is just not leave a comment at all, or give you a dislike and just go their way, right? But oftentimes people are like, hey, great stuff, right? And that makes somebody's day, builds them up, right? In the case of Bocchi, I think she wouldn't even have come that way with the band and everything if it wasn't for her online presence before that, and being like, okay, you know what? I am kind of skilled, right? At the very least, I can play. But yeah, we want commitments from people. That is going for the I'm not going to use the word because YouTube doesn't like it, but the unaliving thing, right? To have people who are in danger of doing that actually commit to actually saying, okay, in the next 2 or 3 weeks, in the next month, I'm not going to do that, right? I promise you. Handshake or written contract or whatever you want to do. And then if I ever get into a situation where I want to, I'm actually going to do X, Y, Z, right? I'm going to talk to this person. I'm going to call this hotline or whatever. I'm going to go to the hospital, whatever, right? There's certain steps you should be taking, and you promise you actually keep that up, right? You're doing that. Now, obviously, that's not a guarantee, but it increases the likelihood of this happening, because we do have some kind of like morality system and a social conventional system that is kind of giving us the sense it's not okay for us to actually do these things. And oftentimes these people, this is something they want to do in the moment, but this is something like later on or before that, they actually don't want to do it. They're afraid to actually do it. So they're like, hey, no, I don't actually, right? I'm glad if somebody actually picks that up. You often hear people talking about it before this happens. Trying to get people on the line, hint to them that this might be something that's happening down the line, in the hopes of maybe getting stopped, right? Or getting convinced not to do it. The same can be said for other things, right? Abstaining alcohol or any other kind of drug. Trying to do something, commit to doing something for a certain period of time, right? Commit to a certain kind of behavior that is supposed to get you to your goals, right? To where you want to be, or get you to change a certain behavior that you want to change about yourself, that would increase or improve your probability, improve your comfort, right? And quality of life. And also anxiety in this case, right? Taking tiny little steps. For example, somebody who is afraid of big crowds actually committing to I don't know, committing to go out into the public 3 times a week, right? For a regular amount of time. And obviously these times can be kind of variable. So if they can't actually do it today, they don't have to do it. But at the very least, they want to do it at least 3 times this week. so they have to take a step outside at some point, right? Obviously, you can set up reward structures as well, but the point is, it is easier to do it after you've taken that first step, right? Once you've done it 1 time a week, doing it a second time is not that hard. Once you've actually committed and said, yeah, I promise you I'm gonna do that, it's a lot easier to actually do that, right? And commit to it and stay with it, because you've entered into a social contract, kind of. But this is what Bocchi is struggling with. She wants to avoid that at any point, at any cost, because this is exactly what we had with in episode 2 when she tried to get sick, because she was like, I know I'm not an asshole enough to be like, hey, I'm sick without actually being sick, so I'm actually trying to literally get sick so I have a proper excuse for it. And she even felt like she needed to be sick, right? Because she felt like, okay, I've committed to this now. Either I need to do it or I need a really good reason not to do it. Obviously, this is also her upbringing, right? And the way she views morality. She's a very kind person and a very good person. But that's pushing her forward, in my opinion. I think that is one of her saving graces, one of the reasons why she's actually getting where she wants to get. This start, holy shit. I was saying an unfamiliar feeling and she literally said it. I mean, I guess you can't not put in a shot like this and not make a Neon Genesis Evangelion reference. Anybody who was watching this who hasn't seen Neon Genesis, go fucking watch it. The original series, all 26 episodes plus End of Evangelion, just watch it. And trust me, like, if on the first half you're like, oh, okay, this is actually pretty okay, but I don't know what people are talking about. Trust, okay? Trust. Right. Her trying to avoid Kita actually getting it, and then talking to people and being like, you know what? Actually, you might not be a bad idea to actually do that. And we actually talk about it. That's the thing. If you never talk about your worries, you never get any other input than what you hear from other people, right? Passively, people talking to one another, or maybe just seeing something on the media, and media is oftentimes super biased because they want to tell a certain story, follow a certain agenda, or right, represent something specific. And the thoughts in your own head, right, in your own personal experiences, which are oftentimes not great. So what you want to do, obviously, is actually talk about your worries so people can actually relate to it and empathize with it and be like, hey, that happened to me too. In this case, Nichika was like, yeah, I did a concert, like one of my culture festivals in middle school. It was kind of neat. And then Rio was like, yeah, I did it too. I bombed this. But she's like, no, this is what I want to avoid. But Rio's like, no, it's actually fine. I found it was great. And later we do see that Rio actually kind of regrets it and cringes at thinking back at that. But I do feel like, for one, that is her coping strategy, right? Being like, proud of being the loner, being proud of being weird or bombing stuff, or just her stupid spending habits and whatnot, being proud of that, even though she knows maybe some of that is not great. And also, I do think that beyond coping mechanism, it's also her feelings on this are ambivalent, right? She, on the one hand, she might regret it and cringe. On the other hand, she might be glad she actually did it because she gained the experience and now she is in a better place. And she can look back on that and be like, yeah, that I don't want to think about that, but yeah, it's part of who I was and I accept that. And that is a healthy way to kind of deal with that. And she's like, I can't do it. I thought about this so many times. I'd rather just be the person who's like, oh, I never believed this person was going to be like this when they grow up, whatever, right? Rarely gonna work. Let's be fucking perfectly honest. Just take your opportunities. Do the things that might be good for you doing. And if it works out, it does. If it doesn't work out, you can still be that person where people are like, well, she bombed kind of in middle school, in high school. I never thought she was actually gonna become successful, and she actually did. So, right? it's a win-win in this situation. I mean, first you lose a little bit, but it's fine. It's fine, right? You know what? You die a little bit inside, you just make a Horcrux. You know what I mean? The Picasso, I got just like, what the fuck? She's like, no. You what? You what? Motherfucker, you what? But who can say no to that cheery extrovert aura face? And she's just wobbling out of existence. And then we're going into the scream. 2 art references in 2 seconds, or in 3 seconds. Great. I'm a criminal. Mama, I'm a criminal. I don't think that's what they meant, but I went there. Yeah. Little jokes here and there. I do love how Nijiga's just a little bit like her sister, if we look at that picture perfectly, right? Sometimes she's like that. And I think it's great that Ryo and Hiroi actually had to pay their dues to Bocchi, because poor fucking Bocchi, she should not be used like that, right? You damn well know that she's gonna say yes when you ask her to, because she doesn't want to make you mad. She wants to be the nice girl, so don't fucking go abusing that. Great thing that Nijiga's sister is actually watching out for them. Also crowds, and she's like, what a great concert. I'm out of here. Bye-bye. Yeah, I mean, I feel that. I mean, I never had like anxiety, but I can see that so many people in one place, it's gonna be really, really stressful for somebody who has social anxiety and thinks that everybody is always watching them. Because that's how it feels like if you have social anxiety, and if you're super sensitive to the gazes of other people, and you interpret them a lot more severely and harshly and negatively in your own head than they actually end up being, right? Sometimes you feel like people notice you getting red or showing weird expressions or being stiff without them really realizing it. And even if they realize it, they maybe think, oh damn, looks like they're not feeling that great. I'm sorry for that. Right? And they're not thinking, look at this fool, right? Rarely, right? In school, kids can be cruel, right? But kids can be cruel because kids don't understand as much yet, right? They don't empathize as much yet. They do not have the emotional maturity to deal with that. And that is why a lot of these problems actually start, right? With like even bullying and stuff like that. People just having their own issues and not being able to always consider that other people are gonna feel bad about this. And even if they do, right, and if they do realize how what I'm doing right now is actually putting this person down and making them feel bad, even then it's more of a I might be getting that on like a semantic level. I'm not getting that on an emotional level, and all I care about at the moment, my priority is me and my own gratification, and this is how I learn to get gratification. Also, a learning process, a functional learning process, but obviously in society, a highly problematic learning process, that you went through that experience of seeing, hey, being violent, putting others down to make myself feel good is the only reliable way for me to make myself feel good. That's kind of like, you're gonna have your troubles with that at some point in life. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but at some point. Really cute designs. The typical like dude looks like he's gonna kill you any second, but actually really nice. Which don't judge people by their car, right? Blah, blah, blah. Don't judge a book on its. Blah, blah. All right, I have dementia. Don't judge a book by its cover. And this person being from London? What? How does she stay in Japan? Tell me that, right? It's super hard to stay in Japan as a foreigner. Let me be honest. I mean, yeah, you can become an English teacher for like, I think it's like 3 years or 4 years or something, maybe 5 years maximum. But then you have to have married in somewhere, right? Imagine you're like an English teacher in Japan for 3 or 5 years, and then you have to move back to your own country. You literally build a life here. You spend 5 years in this country, socializing with other people, building your friend circle, and suddenly you're getting ripped out from that. That's not a good solution. I think there should be a path for people like that, especially who can provide something to Japan in terms of like teaching people things, in terms of providing something for society to stick over, like to stay over there, right? Especially since Japan, it's not like Japan is suffering from overpopulation. Tokyo maybe, but the other regions not as much. But yeah, right. For foreign politics, it's not my thing to actually say something like that. Rio being the elitist, I love it. And our first foray into psychedelic rock. It didn't sound that psychedelic, but it was on the border, right? You did hear the vibes. Now let me see actually if there's something interesting in the lyrics. Oh yeah, and this is an actual song. I would bet that it's probably on Spotify then. Uplay doing spot the difference puzzle. Okay, that is weird and quirky. Oh, what fun! A lost child beckons me to a land of dreams. This way, that way. Alright, which way is the way? My life's run out of battery. Like, it's kind of jumbled, right? You'd see that a lot in psychedelic kind of songs where it's like themes merge and melt with one another, and sometimes you have these jumps in thoughts. It's kind of very similar to what you would expect from a person who has, I don't know, delusions or something like that, right? Where you do have thoughts, right? You jumping from one thought to the other, even though there is no clear, coherent connection between the two. I can't tell you how much I admire your philanthropy, all of you, round and round, let's dance. There's only one ghost and it's me. All right, so I don't see a clear line, but maybe that's the point. Maybe that's the point, that it's highly interpretative and that there's a lot to be read into that one might experience during a psychedelic episode of just exploring your own sensations in a very unstructured way, which can be fun, I suppose. Can be a real experience. I do love how lived in the spaces feel. Especially like all the, like Starry felt a little bit sterile, but at the same time it felt like a studio, like a private home studio you would create for yourself. This one feels like an art den, basically, right? Like one club that you get yourself into that has 1,000 stickers and graffiti on the walls, and like 50 years ago it was founded and a lot of bands have played there, and maybe there's like limited entry or whatever, like stuff like that. Like it's really underground scene feely, and I do like that you get that feeling. Ryo being punished for her sins, but she is very good at manipulating people into giving her what she wants. But we're planning out the culture festival, which is great, and we do have that one very, very nice scene again between Kita and Bocchi, because Kita is a person that is very sociable, right? Can get what she wants oftentimes, can pressure people into things, but also she's a very honest person, and we've learned that. She felt terribly guilty about the whole thing when she was actually fleeing from 𝔸𝕬𝕐𝗶𝗰 bando in the beginning as a guitarist, and didn't even want to see them, and then had to apologize and make up for it, and then she was like, okay, I'm out of here. I don't think I deserve to actually be in here, which tells you a lot about her character and where she stands. While she does have a lot of self-confidence and she does know how to actually deal with other people on a social level, she does still have that humility, and she does have that sense of morality that would make her a very enjoyable and nice person to be around. That, you know, she is a person that feels guilty about maybe doing something against your will or lying to you. And she apologizes right here to clear the air. And this is also her social sense, actually, because a person who might be less of a social butterfly might have shoved that off and been like, no, they're gonna hate me when I actually reveal that. And then put that off more and more until you get to a point where it actually comes out, right? Because it's always gonna come out. Let me be honest. Most of the time it's gonna come out. And then they're in a situation where people actually feel that way about them, as they have thought they would feel about them when they would reveal the lie. And that kind of confirms them in their beliefs that this is how it's gonna go next time as well, which is dysfunctional learning, because in this case, if you come out with it sooner, as Kita has done right here, there would have been a completely different feeling with it. And I do like that Bocchi does have that self-reflection of being like, no, you know what? I'm actually glad that you took that step for me, right? That you forced me into actually being in that situation, because as much as I did not want to do it initially, all right, or had my thoughts and my anxiety and whatnot, I'm really glad that I'm now kind of low-key committed to doing it. And I'm starting to look forward to it. Because once you're past that step of, right, am I gonna do it, am I not gonna do it, you start to actually make your plans, right? You conceptualize it, you plan it, you organize it. And as you're a couple of steps into that, you're starting to enjoy it. Because this is not something that you're like dreading to do. This is something you love doing, right? But she loves playing music. She loves being engaged in this world. And I think, right, sometimes she does need that push, and then she's in and she's like, you know what? Even though I'm still anxious, I do really love that I can do that now, and I'm looking forward to all the positive that may come out of that. And I think it's great to have friends like this that are actually doing this for you. And this shot is amazing, right? The slightly distorted point of view shot of like just the road and looking down because you've just bowed in apologies, and that anticipation of, right, slowly panning up and seeing how the face of your opposite looks. And yeah, and that reaction of just slightly a little bit nervous, a little bit bashful, a little bit downcast because of her general lack of self-confidence, but definitely a slight smile on her face with, yeah, looking forward to what's to come and being glad that she is in that situation. And that's, right, that little glimmer in Kita's eyes as it sparks her flame and desire, and she's going in, right? But she's surprised and she's going in, she's breaking that personal barrier. Shout out to 𝔸𝕬𝕐𝗶𝗰 in episode 2. I'm sorry, I had to do it. She's breaking that personal barrier and getting really intimate and emotional with Bocchi, and is like, I promise you, I'm gonna work hard for this to be a success. Like, we're gonna make this happen, right? Because I am proud of you, and I'm emotionally touched that you are thankful to me and that you are also looking forward to this, and that I made the right decision to actually turn it in, despite knowing that you didn't want to. Just pretending that I did unknowingly, right? Because if she did it knowingly and she was like immediately like, yeah, I put you in, I knew, it would kind of be feeling like a violation of her personal boundaries, I feel. Right? If somebody does something like that for you and it's like, I thought it would be good for you, it comes across as a violation of personal boundaries, especially if you still feel anxious and afraid of it in that very moment, because you do have to process that shock of, this is gonna happen if I want it or not. But she's past that, right? She's past that moment of, oh shit, it's gonna happen, what am I gonna do? And she's in that, okay, this might actually not be so bad. And as a result of that, revealing it now will change the entire way she looks upon this. Because perspective is everything, right? Everything, our entire world that we construct here, it's subjective. And it's what we make of it that's important. Timing is a very important thing because of that, right? Comedic timing works like that. Emotional timing works like that. And people who make these stories, right, who create these series, they have to have a great sense for that, because the directing that goes into that makes this so special. That requires a lot of sense for that kind of timing, for that kind of processing that's going on in the back, to actually make it a successful, make it a hit, make it resonate with people so deeply. Yeah, she's not there. I don't know what that is. Maybe she's gotten an anxiety attack, or something actually gotten in between there. So we'll have to see about that next time. This was 𝔸𝕬𝕐𝕐 Rock episode 10. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I do hope you did so as well. If you haven't seen the reaction, go check it out. It's in the description down below, right? And other than that, thank you to all of my patrons, especially to Cardboard, who's been supporting me very heavily despite not yet seeing the series that he or she, I'm gonna say they, actually wanted to see, but it's just around the corner. It's just around the bend. To quote a song that I really like, and we're gonna get there. And for all you looking forward to episode 11 and 12 of 𝔸𝕬𝕐𝕐 Rock, I hope you'll tune in again. I'll see you next time.